Hey guys, I'm back at it again, and we're actually talking about a very famous franchise for a lot of PlayStation fans, myself included, the Sly Cooper franchise, which I hold very dear to my heart, even as a small child. I'll go more into that since it was more with the sequel than the actual first game, which I didn't even know existed until like years after I played the second one. I'll go more into it, but let's just say I was a dumbass, no less. Now, I did play this about 7 years ago, give or take, when the trilogy actually came out on PS Vita. That was actually the first time I ever played the first one and its sequel, the third one. I never got a chance to play the fourth one. Of course, I know the story and everything because I watched a YouTuber play it, but here I am back in 2023 actually revisiting the franchise to see that if it still holds up to this day and age, to see if new fans can get into it, while maybe a fifth one would be in the works at some point. Sucker Punch, the developers of the Sly Cooper franchise, were actually originally a team that belonged to Microsoft. Now, they didn't have any hateful bridges with them. They decided to cut it off because they felt like they wanted to be on their own and have less restrictions and more freedom, which I can pretty much understand that. Back before they even made Sly Cooper, their first game was a little bit of a rocky start that actually eventually pushed them to make Sly Cooper, this game being known as Rocket Robot on Wheels. Now, this game was originally for the N64, and honestly, it has a little bit of an interesting story, because this type of game is basically what Sly Cooper is, a platformer, and when they actually made the game, they were finished with it, but unfortunately, they decided to make the most beginner mistake you can possibly make, that being, there was nobody to actually publish said game. So they had a finished game, just nobody to actually help them push it out to the world. And mind you, this is on the N64 and only for the N64. So they went ahead and called everyone they knew, including, funny enough, Sony themselves. And of course, Sony didn't do it because that'd be kind of dumb for them, but also really funny if Sony actually published a only N64 game, especially during this time period with their PS1. But after making this beginner mistake, they did eventually get the experience they needed and moved on to the Sly Cooper franchise. We're introduced to our three heroes. Sly Cooper, the main character we're actually going to be playing as for the majority of the game. A cocky, but not Vegeta level cocky, making him pretty much the all-around cool guy that you want to be. Bentley, who's pretty much just the guy in the chair, but still a true friend nevertheless, always putting Sly's safety first in any type of situation. Murray, the lovable, not as smart, not as cool, but major powerhouse, which in this game doesn't really show that because he's more of a pussy. Trust me when I say he is the powerhouse of the whole team, while also being the most sensitive hippo all around. He's also my favorite. I mean, look at the guy. How can you not love this guy? With these three, they're off to go gather up the Thievius raccoon that was actually teared up and split amongst the five thieves. Now, this book holds the ancestry material of the previous Cooper thieves in the family that was supposed to be given to Sly when he was of age. Unfortunately, like I said beforehand, the five thieves actually showed up to his house and pretty much just pulled up, basically, stealing the book while also killing his mother and father in front of his very eyes. And as they scoured around the world, it's pretty much their job to actually go and beat them up and get the pages back, putting all the thieves into jail while also having a little bit of fun while doing it. We eventually come face to face with the main honcho, Clockwork, who is just a big ass owl, which I don't even know how the fuck he gets his abilities and shit. Because, I mean, just look at the guy, he's fucking massive. He does hold a grudge, not just for Sly specifically, but actually for the Cooper heritage, which they don't really go into, which is a little bit sad because this is the only thing that the story never actually goes into. Because he mentions that he's actually been alive for hundred upon hundreds of years. And if you look at him, he looks more machine than human, or I guess in this case, animal. So it's a little bit sad that they don't actually show that and actually talk about what was beginning for him, what was actually leading him to this path of just pure hatred and rage. But I digress. We eventually beat him, and we actually get to steal a kiss from Carmelita, who I haven't mentioned just because she's actually not really that important. She's just an officer who's been trying to catch Sly for X amount of years, and she fails upon fails upon fails until, she eventually gets a little bit of her heart stolen by him. Pulling a little bit of a Phantom Thieves, I see. The story being a very simple story compared to all platformers back in this day and age never actually bothered me because, like my other recent reviews with other platformers, it's more so about the journey and the characters rather than the destination. And you really don't need a super deep plot making you guess a deeper philosophical motive. Sometimes you just have fun with it, whether in this case it's just you going to get your pages back because your father got killed by these thieves. Then it being about a time traveling, reality warping girl who's also your daughter, and you get the picture. Sly being a thief is actually a huge part of his character, but also in gameplay. Everything you do is a callback to this, which I absolutely love. It's not something that tells you and you just throw it out the window as soon as they tell you in the story. It's actually within the level structures. You're always having to hide in the shadows, avoid security lights, security beams, guards, always disguise yourself in the barrel, or even just sneaking around enemies, while also having us tiptoe, in fact, whenever you do have to do something super sneaky, which I absolutely love those small details. Minigames where you can go twin stick shooter mode, protecting Murray, kill 50 chickens, the list goes on. Making it where it's not just the same thing over and over again, giving you a little bit of diverse gameplay, always keeping you on your toes, and while giving you a little bit of fresh air, if you would. Which brings us to the topic of what type of game this is exactly. Now, for me personally, I would say this is a combination of the classic Mario games, the 2D ones, and the Sonic games, whether that's the original trilogy or even a little bit of the mid 2000s stuff, whether that's Sonic Colors or Sonic Unleashed Day Stages. Sly can only get one hit on him, and as soon as he does, he dies. Now, if you do get 100 coins that can be found throughout the level, whether it's beating up bad guys or just random ass objects, you get a horseshoe, which is pretty much as a mushroom. And then if you get another 100 horseshoe, which is just another mushroom basically on top of your current mushroom. And then if you get another 100, well, that's an extra life. This is why I'm saying it's a little bit of the classic Mario games. You go from point A to point B. These levels can be a few minutes long. You can take as long as you like in these, but you also find yourself just dashing through them, having a great time. It also doesn't help that there are also time challenges, which just pushes you forward into that whole mentality of trying to finish the stage as fast as you possibly can, much like the Sonic games. As for the whole collectible department, since this is a platformer, there isn't a whole lot besides these bottles, which can be from either 20 to 40, ranging between that marker. And each level, besides the minigame ones, do have these balls where if you do collect them all in said level, you can unlock this safe and it actually expands upon Sly's move sets, which can be a dive move, roll move, stopping time, or even fast forwarding time, along with other thief-like abilities, as well as even upgrading them further as you get through the game, giving it a little bit of an extra kick, making it better than it was beforehand. Each of these powers are a blast to use, even if some aren't the most useful, even after you upgrade them fully, making you want to get all the balls to each and every stage. And now, this isn't a necessary thing, it just expands upon the gameplay if you actually do said thing. All you have to do to actually get further into the game is beat said level, while you just get the key and, unlock the next level and rinse and repeat throughout the whole game. The only thing I would complain about is the bottles make no type of sound effect whatsoever, but they are hidden, so it's not like they're just in plain view. So it is a little bit of a challenge, especially if you do miss just one bottle and you have to go throughout the whole fucking stage again and basically replay it just to find out one bottle. Or if you're like me, maybe even give up and look up a YouTube video. Music in this game is absolutely outstanding, and each theme of each world honestly making you want to hum it to yourself, or even just find yourself just literally stopping what you're doing and listening to the actual music. Take my word when I absolutely love each and every soundtrack. In fact, I don't really consider one of these soundtracks a bad one or even me disliking one. I absolutely do love each and every song, and there honestly there's a great time to just bop in your head. Besides the main enemies, the actual real focus are the bosses, which is just the five thieves I mentioned beforehand. At the end of each world, you do get to fight each one, and each of the bosses are actually unique in their own way, whether it's them fighting you or even the way you defeat them being unique as well. While one of them, just giving you a small little taste, is a whole rhythm game, which it's not a bad one, but the way I experienced it wasn't exactly the best since my version of the game, which I totally played this on a PlayStation 3 and definitely did not emulate it, I swear to God, lagged a little bit here and there to the point where I literally could not time the shit at all. Also, I absolutely hate the camera angle they decide to use for these because half the time I think it's gonna hit him and then it doesn't, and then I'm either too late or too early. In fact, I fucking did a game over on this stage, I think like twice, so fuck me. Long story short, if you love platformer games, you absolutely have to give this a shot. Yes, it's very short. You can defeat it in like one sitting. For me, it took 6 hours, but that's only because I did 100%. Now, if you're just casually playing it, maybe even half that time, maybe a little bit more, give or take, but you will not complain about the journey you went on with this first game because it is honestly something special, and the fact that it's already special within the first game really speaks volumes, especially when you stop and think about that there's three more games after this. So obviously, there has to be something within the series continuing forward, which I'll go more into when I look at Sly Cooper 2. So with that, have a good morning, good night, wherever you're at. If it's your birthday, happy birthday, and hope you have a peaceful day. Until next time.